I want to go over a couple of things, some of the key components of your soil. I'm sorry, of your water. Um, this clunky sentence, as water is, so then shall be the soil. I can never get that right, no matter how many times I say it. Basically, what's that saying is that your water and your soil are going to mirror each other in some way, shape, or form. If your water quality is good, you're going to have healthier soil, you're going to have reduced nitrogen use, and you're going to have increased nutrient availability. If your water is compromised, then how I like to explain it to guys that when I'm first getting to know them, first going over this, is that if your water is compromised, if it's not where you need it to be, then everything that you do agronomically in your program is going to be fighting against that, trying to get everything in line. But if water starts off where you need it to be, where you want it to be, where it should be, then everything else will fall in line with your program, making your life much, much easier. So, where do we start? Obviously, the first thing we do, that's this talk is about. It's about looking at your water test. So where we start is we start at your water tests. What I like to do is the key thing is we want to get all of your sources. We want to get your pond. We want to get supplemental wells. And if you are not using your irrigation water to fill your spray tanks, we want to get your wash pad, because that's very, very important. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. How it's going to affect your fungicide program. What I like to do is throughout the course of a year to get a baseline is this time of the year, you haven't really fired up your irrigation system, but I want to take a sample. I'd like to take a sample of your pond, because depending on where your golf course is, you might be close to a road, getting road runoff, or a creek might run into your property, into your irrigation pond. That might be near a road. And with the winter that we've had this past winter, there's been a lot of brining, there's been a lot of salt applied. So we want to take a look at what you're dealing with getting into the season, because you might have some contamination from any of the outlying areas that are coming in your golf course, which are filtering down into the property. Then, as we get into the season, the second test is normally done sometime late June, early July, when we've hit a couple of droughty periods going into the heart of the summer, and you've gotten into your supplemental wells. What I found throughout the years is that the deeper that you get into your supplemental wells, your bicarb load is going to increase, and normally your pH is actually going to increase. So not only are you fighting everything else, going, in July, which is the worst month ever to grow grass in this area, if your water is getting progressively worse, you guys need to know that. And so that's why I like to take that test. The last test is done late summer, early fall, when you guys are starting to do your soil tests. Because this way, what I can do is we can take a soil test along with another water test, and we can see those results, and we can mirror those. We can match those up, and we can see exactly how things have compared throughout the year with your baseline test in the beginning. And then what we can do is come up with some kind of program to incorporate both your soil deficiencies and whatever's going on in your water. Once you get the water test, this is what you're going to get back from us. We use Tournament Turf Labs, Dr. David York, who I've worked with Dave now for many, many years, and he is one of the sharpest guys when it comes to this. He is always available, which is he's just a tremendous asset. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, if you have any concerns, email, call Dave. He will get back to you, which is, and in a quick time, which is fantastic too, because I'm always on the phone with him, asking him questions. So he's extremely knowledgeable. He also lays out the test in an extremely well thought out manner. It's direct, it's concise. There's no charts, there's no graphs, there's no color coding, there's no bells and whistles. It's showing you what you have, and then he tells you what you need and how it should be done. Some of these things highlighted here are what we're going to be getting diving deeper into. Some of the highlighted things we're going to be, bicarbonates, total alkalinity, pHC, pH. These are the things that we're going to be talking about now. But I wanted to show you this because this is we're going to come back to this test at the end of the talk, and these highlighted areas we're going to go over a little bit deeper into what you're going to be seeing and how they can be corrected. More importantly, this and again this first test is, you can see this is a wash pad sample. So again, like I mentioned earlier, this wash pad sample, if you're using that, you need to know if you have, how you need to buffer your tank, how it's going to affect your fungicide efficacy, especially with guys with ABW issues. If your tank water is not squared away, you are, you're spending, your budget is way too tight to be wasting money in a spray tank. So that's why I wanted to highlight that. Every test that I would get when I did a soil test, they would give me a sheet with desirable ranges. And I never got one for a pH, a water test. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, when I was a superintendent, I would get my test and I would look at it, and I would look at the pH would be the first and really the only thing that I would look at. And if it was close to 7, I'd be like, cool. And then I would put it in a file, and then I would go right to the soil test and take a look at that. So what we've compiled here is to make sure that you guys do more than just look at the pH and then put it away. We come up with a desirable range for different things in your irrigation water. Now, I'm not going to talk about all of these. We're going to, I've highlighted some of these that we're going to go over, but know that this is available to you so that when you do, when you start looking into your tests more in depth, you can compare and you can see how your program is affecting your water quality. Come on. Okay. Well, there was going to be a list there of the 6 different things that we were going to talk about, which is pH, pHC, electrical conductivity, total dissolved solids, and alkalinity. So won't bore you with trying to go over that right now and trying to figure that out. So we're just going to go right to the first one, which is pH, which is the one that everybody looks at, which is the one that everybody knows. pH is the concentration of hydrogen ions in the water. Those hydrogen ions are what affect the solubility of fertilizers and your nutrient availability. And your desired range is going to be anywhere between 5.5 to 6.5 in a perfect world. If that happens, that's great. Then you know that things are not going to get tied up into the soil as much. When you do fertilize, you know that the plant's going to take it up. It's not going to be affected in any way, in a negative way. And so, you're off to a good start. Again, this was the one that I looked at. Okay, 6.8. Well, that's close to 7, Andrew. So let's put it away for another year. If your water's on a higher end, if it's in the 8 range, there's things that's going to be happening. You're going to be tying things up. You might have to treat that depending on the rest of what the water looks like. So this is the easy one. Everybody knows. We're not going to go too much more on this. Now, the next one, pHC, that's the one. I don't know, that one's, I got a soft spot in my heart for that one. I really like pHC because until I started working with Dr. York, I didn't know what the hell pH. What is PHC? PHC is the theoretical pH of water when it's in equilibrium with calcium carbonate. Now, when I read that, I'm like, I don't even know what does that mean, dude. So 8.4 is your magic number there for PHC. If your PHC is less than 8.4, bicarbonates are going to accumulate on the surface. Now, we're going to talk about bicarbs in a couple of seconds. So I want to get on to if your PHC is greater than 8.4. What's going to happen is your water, the colloid water, is going to strip off the positive ions off of the colloid. Now, the colloid is made up of positive charged ions, your calcium, your magnesium. Your negatively charged ions are going to be bicarbonates, which, turn out, which are not a good thing. So if your calcium is greater than 8.4, anything that you do that could be freed up, anything that you're going to be doing in the shoulder seasons, you're going to get your soil test, and it's going to tell you that you need to apply X amount of lime or dolomitic lime or high cal lime, whatever, per acre on your, let's say, on your fairways. And you're going to do that, and that's the only thing that you're going to do throughout the season. And you're going to water, you're going to go up, you're going to go throughout the season, and then what's going to happen is you're going to take those soil tests again that next fall, and you're going to get your test back, and the needle is not going to be moved at all. Nothing has changed. The reason, there's a good chance that your PHC is greater than 8.4, and so anything that you've done, anything that you've applied, anything that has been freed up in the soil profile has been stripped away from your irrigation water. So, and if that's the case, what you need to do is you need to figure out a way to try to bridge that over the course of the year, so that anything that does get freed up, you're not going to be removing everything. So you can start building. It's a building block. You're going to build it and build it and build it. So you get to the point where you have enough, enough, how should I say, there's enough in the soil that you're not going to be stripping away everything. So that is really, really important to know, and not something that gets a lot of attention paid to. That's a PHC is a really good one to pay attention to. So the next one, bicarbonates. As the soil dries, bicarbonates are going to precipitate with either calcium in a form of calcium carbonate or magnesium carbonate. And what that's going to do is that is going to collect at the surface of the profile, and it's going to seal it off. And I'm sure, and again, this is if your PHC is less than 8.4, this is what you're going to see, especially in times of droughty situations. So if you have 6, 8, 10, 12 days without any rain and it's irrigation water only, what you're going to see is, and in severe cases, you can actually tell, you can almost see it. You can almost feel it underfoot. The turf will get crunchy almost. And what this is, that's the pore space being taken up with these bicarbonates. And so when you're watering, when you're hand watering that hump on that green, you're just seeing everything. You're just watching the rivulets go down to the and run off onto the approach. It beads up, and you just can't get any penetration going in. Those bicarbonates have just sealed off everything. When you get into extreme situations, and the bicarb range, you're over the desired range, which is, you can see it's between 0 to 120 parts per million. I feel that 90 is, once you get to 90, you really need to start watching it, because that's going to start affecting things. But if you can get into extreme areas where it's 2, 3, 4 times the desired range, now you're going to start, it's becoming toxic in the profile. And what that's going to do is that's going to shorten up your roots. Things are going to thin. Things are going to get heavily trafficked, that are going to get extra wear. They're going to thin. I see this a lot in collars. with guys that have, where their water needs to be treated, and they want to say they don't understand why their collars are thinning. It looks like drought. They water it, it gets worse. So all you're doing is you're exacerbating the situation by adding more water, more bad water. And the other thing is when your bicarb load is heavy, it's what you're going to see is you're going to see a mottling to the turf. It's going to look chlorotic. You might think that it's hungry. You might think that, oh, I've got an iron deficiency, I need to throw some iron down. Or you might think that it's droughty. And if that, so then you water and then you just see the area get worse. Odds are, when you really need to take a closer look, if your bicarbs are high, then that's what's happening. It's just affecting the penetration, and it's becoming toxic to your roots. Electrical conductivity is something that I think that it's important, because what it's measuring the salt content of your water. It's the flow of electrical current in your water. It's not sodium, it's salt. And as your EC goes up, when you get out of your range, your salts are going up. And again, we see this when we get into your supplemental wells. This has a dynamic effect on how your water is being treated and how it needs to be amended, I should say. A low EC, which is what, and guys in South Jersey, which was where I was superintendent, I drew out of the Cohansey aquifer directly. I had no supplemental wells, and my water was really, really light. My EC was low, and it took me a couple of years. I was growing bent grass in straight sand, and I could not get any penetration into the profile. And it took me a couple of years to get a handle on that. My EC was my biggest culprit. And so what I had to do is I called it dirtying up the water. So I did it with a wetting agent. You can also do it with an NPK product with maybe with a beneficial salt on it, a beneficial with iron or manganese, something like that. Something that's just going to give that molecule that little bit of extra weight that's going to help penetrate. And once I figured that out, it made my life a hell of a lot easier when it came to trying to figure out how to water and how to water properly, because I was wasting so much water trying to getting things into the profile. It was ugly there for the first couple of years, I'm not gonna lie. The EC now delves right into your TDS, your total dissolved solids. Those two go hand in hand. The TDS, is the measure of salinity. And that is calculated by multiplying your EC times 640. One EC unit is 640 parts per million. So that's how you're going to get your TDS. That's how we're going to calculate that. Now, your desired range for that is 200 to 500 parts per million. Again, once you get into that high range, once you get anywhere, to me, 400, 350, 400, you really need to start looking at that, because now the higher that you get, what's going to happen is, the salinity, especially for guys that are growing POA, which is the least tolerant to salinity. Now again, we're already, if your bicarbs are high, okay, you're great. Now my roots are getting shorter. I'm growing POA. My roots are already short to begin with. Now my TDS is getting high. It's getting up there. If I don't do something to amend this situation, all I'm doing, I'm just adding fuel to that fire every time I'm watering. You have to water, but every time that you water, you're just exacerbating that situation, and you're causing yourself more problems. So TDS is something that really, really needs to be looked at. Through your TDS, you can also determine the percentage of your bicarbs by multiplying by dividing the TDS by 640. So that's always a good thing to know too. Is you want to get your bicarb load, your percentage of your bicarb in your water, and that's always a good thing to know too. The last thing I want to talk about briefly is total alkalinity. What this is the measure of the water's ability to neutralize the acidity, to quote unquote buffer, right? So when we go back to what we were talking about with the wash pad sample, if your alkalinity is out of whack and you're not buffering that tank, anything that you are putting into that tank, you are not using it efficiently. Your efficacy has gone down. And again, like with Bifen, something like that, you guys going after ABW. I mean, the effect on it is just it's tremendous, and you're spraying your money away, and you're not getting the residuals that you want, and it's not going to turn out good at the end, because there are things that there are things that are going into the tank. It weakens the ability of the fungicide, but also limits exactly how much you can put into the tank too. And so you really, really need to know what you're putting in your spray tank, and the alkalinity is going to show you that. For guys that the alkalinity is high and in their irrigation end, what that's telling you is and if you have to treat your water, it's going to tell you how much you have to treat your water. If you had an example of a water sample if you were looking to get down to 6.5, let's say, and you have one sample that's 7.2 with an alkalinity of 45 parts per million, and you have another sample that might be 6.7, 6.8 with alkalinity of 145 parts per million, you're actually going to use more material to get down to that 6.5 from that 6.8 sample, because your alkalinity is higher. So again, these are things to know if you are going to be treating your water, if you're going to be acidifying your water. You need to know this, because that's how much you're going to have to budget. You don't want to. There's guys that use 300 gallons of acid a year, and that's all they use, and it's great, and their water is treated. And there's guys that have to use upwards of 750, 1,000 gallons a year, because whether it's their bicarb, whether it's their alkalinity, whether it's their pH, all these things conspire that you have to, and you want to get down to that desirable range of 5.5 to 6.5. That's the more acid you're going to have to use. So again, the alkalinity is something that you're going to need to know for your plan of attack. So let's go back to now that hopefully anybody hasn't left or is still awake. Let's go back to this first test that we showed from this wash pad sample. I'll tell you what. Let's go to the next one, because this is what he's irrigating with. Okay, this is a customer down in the Eastern Shore. So there's any Maryland guys down on this call, you guys know your water it stinks in a lot of areas. So if you can see, out of his sample, his bicarb load is 420 parts per million. His total alkalinity is 340 parts per million. His pH is 7.9, and his pHC is 7.9, and his pH is 8.4. Now, there's nothing good with this water sample. To add insult to injury, this is city water. He has to pay for this stuff. What he sees is he sees a modeling. You can actually see it. He gets a white film on certain areas of the golf course on his greens. You can almost it's like a white sheen. You can feel this. You can see the modeling. So what we do is we came up with a program through various, whether granular calcium, injection of acid. And what we've done is we brought this down to his bicarbonate load is under 90. His alkalinity is down. It's down in the. It's still not great, but it's down into the 120 range, I believe. Here is I wanted to highlight this just because this is extreme. I'm sure you guys don't have all of this. You got some of you guys might have a high pH, you might have a high bicarb. He's got everything. But I wanted to show you this because anything is treatable. This is a perfect example that you could have the worst water in the world. We can treat it, and we can treat it successfully. And that's how you're going to, and from that, then the rest of your agronomic program can just fall in line. So, don't despair, fellas. We can figure it out some way. At least, well, somebody can. I might not be able to, but I'm sure someone smarter out there can. So, what's next? Simple. We're going to get a test. We're going to, anybody who's on this call, I believe Leah's mentioned she's going to there's going to be a link that's going out where you can get you can sign up for a water test and a soil test. We're going to get those out to you. And from there, all of the Synatech reps are all well-versed in this. I drew the short straw to give the talk, but any of your guys, they can go over the tests with you and get you pointed in the right direction from, again, from every standpoint, from whether it's attacking it from a granular end, depending on, you guys might need to attack it from, it might be, it just might be you need some calcium, extra calcium in your soil. It just might be your EC might be low. You just might need something, you just need to dirty that water up. Or your water might need to get treated. So that's something that you might have to look at further on down the road. But before we even get into any kind of recommendations, what we're going to do is we're going to get the water and soil test, because it makes, when I talk to my guys for the first time, when I'm meeting my guys for the first time, the first thing I want is a water test, because until then, I can't, it makes no sense. It would drive me crazy when I would meet a guy for the first time and he would come into my office and he would tell me what I needed to do. No, man, that's not how I like to sell. That's not how I like to be sold. So we're not going to do anything until we see what's going on in your water and your soil. And then from then, we can give you an educated an educated program that's going to help straighten things out for you.